The sacred mountain loomed over the valley, casting a long shadow across the Terry settlement. Smoke billowed from its peak, a constant reminder of the danger that threatened them all. The ground shook again, causing clay pots to rattle and children to cry out in fear. It was the third tremor that day. Elder June stood at the center of the village square, his weathered face grave as he addressed the gathered crowd. The ceremonial robes hung heavily on his thin frame, adorned with crystals that caught the fading sunlight. "The signs cannot be ignored any longer," he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "The earth spirits grow more restless with each passing day. Our homes crack, our crops fail, and soon the mountain will unleash its fury upon us all." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew what would come next. It was written in their oldest texts, practiced in ceremonies throughout their history, though no living Terry had seen it performed in truth. "The time has come for the final offering," Elder June continued. "Only by sacrificing our strongest warrior can we appease the spirits that dwell within the mountain." All eyes turned to Hannah, who stood at attention among the warrior caste. Her silver-blue skin gleamed with the traditional markings of her rank, 3 parallel lines across each cheek that signify her unmatched skill in battle. She had defended the Terry against rival clans and dangerous beasts that roamed the plains beyond their valley. Now her strength had become her doom. Elder June approached her, holding out a ceremonial dagger with a blade of volcanic glass. "The council has chosen Hannah, defender of the Western Pass, slayer of the great cave serpent. You will give your life essence to the earth spirits, so that our people may survive." Hannah accepted the dagger with steady hands, though her heart raced within her chest. She had always imagined dying in battle, not chained to a stone pillar. "I accept this honor," she said, the ritual words falling from her lips as she had been taught. Yet inside, doubt gnawed at her. The scientific faction among the Terry had proposed alternative explanations for the tremors, suggesting methods to predict and perhaps even prevent the volcanic activity. Those voices had been silenced in council meetings, dismissed as heretical. The preparation began immediately. Attendants led Hannah to the sacred pool where she would be cleansed. They removed her battle armor, piece by piece, replacing it with thin white garments woven with silver thread. They painted elaborate patterns across her exposed skin, symbols to guide her spirit after death. "Be brave, Hannah," whispered Mina, her childhood friend who now served as a ritual attendant. "Your sacrifice will save us all." Hannah nodded, unable to speak the doubts that plagued her mind. Was this truly the only way? Or were they clinging to ancient superstitions when knowledge might save them instead? As the sun began to set, the procession formed. Drummers led the way, beating a slow, solemn rhythm. The elders followed, then Hannah, surrounded by guards more to honor her than to prevent escape. The entire village trailed behind, singing the farewell to the chosen, a melody as old as their written history. They marched up the winding path toward the base of the mountain, to the ancient stone pillar that stood in a circular clearing. The pillar, carved from black volcanic rock, rose 15 feet into the air. Elaborate chains of a metal unknown to modern Terry craftsmen hung from iron rings near its top. Dr. Ta Kim watched the procession through his binoculars from the cover of twisted crystal trees that bordered the clearing. The human synanthropologist had been studying the Terry for nearly 6 months, living in a camouflaged research station several miles from the settlement. His superiors at the Galactic Research Institute had been clear: observe, document, but never interfere with indigenous cultural practices. Yet nothing in his research had prepared him for this. His data had shown increasing seismic activity in the region, but he had attributed it to natural geological processes. Now he realized the Terry had their own explanation and their own solution. "This can't be happening," he whispered to himself, adjusting the audio receptors on his equipment to capture the ceremony. Elder June raised his staff as the procession reached the clearing. Since time beyond memory, the Terry have lived in harmony with the earth spirits. When the spirits grow angry, we must remind them of our devotion. Hannah was led to the pillar, Her face remained composed, though Tai could see the slight trembling of her hands. A priestess approached with a golden chalice. "Drink, chosen one," the priestess said. "This will ease your passage to the spirit realm." Hannah accepted the chalice, drinking the thick, purple liquid within. Almost immediately, her posture relaxed, her eyes growing slightly unfocused. Whatever was in that drink, Tai realized, it would make her compliant and likely dull her pain later. The guards guided her to the pillar, securing the ancient chains around her wrists and ankles. The metal gleamed strangely in the torchlight, unlike any alloy Tai had seen the Terry craft. Another piece of evidence that something about this ritual predated their current technological level. When the moon reaches its peak, Elder June proclaimed, the final offering will be complete. The chosen warrior's life essence will flow into the mountain, and the earth's spirits will be appeased. A final tremor shook the ground, stronger than those before, as if the mountain itself approved of the proceedings. Several Terry fell to their knees, taking it as confirmation that their actions were just. As the ceremony concluded, the villagers began to depart, leaving Hannah alone at the pillar. Only 2 guards remained at the edge of the clearing, their backs to her in a show of respect for her final hours of contemplation. Ta waited in silence as darkness fell completely. His equipment continued to monitor the seismic activity. According to his readings, a major event was imminent, likely within the next 24 hours. Whether Hannah was sacrificed or not, something catastrophic was about to happen. He faced an impossible choice: respect the prime directive of non-interference, or save an innocent life. As the guards finally retreated down the path, leaving Hannah alone in the moonlight, Tai made his decision. Some rules were meant to be broken, especially by foolish humans who couldn't stand by and watch a senseless death. Ta waited until the last torch disappeared down the mountain path. The night air grew cold as clouds covered the stars, leaving only the faint red glow from the volcano's peak to light the clearing. The mountain rumbled again, sending small rocks tumbling down the slopes. Hannah hung limply against her chains, the ceremonial drug still flowing through her system. Her breathing was slow but steady. Occasionally, she would lift her head, staring at the angry mountain with unfocused eyes. Tai checked his scanner one last time. The seismic readings were worsening by the hour. If his calculations were correct, a major eruption was imminent, perhaps within 12 hours. He tucked the device into his pocket and took a deep breath. 7 years of cynoanthropological training told him to stay hidden, to observe and document. But something stronger, something fundamentally human, pushed him forward. He moved silently through the crystal trees, approaching the clearing. His footsteps made no sound on the soft volcanic soil. When he reached the edge of the open space, he paused, listening for any sign of returning guards. Hearing nothing but the mountain's distant rumbling, he stepped into the moonlight. Hannah didn't notice him at first. Her head hung down, silver-blue skin gleaming with sweat despite the cool night. The ceremonial paint on her face had begun to run, creating streaks that looked like tears. "I'm going to help you," Ta said softly, his translator converting his words to the Terry language. Hannah's head snapped up. Her eyes widened as she took in the strange figure before her, a creature with pale skin and dark hair, wearing the synthetic clothing no Terry would create. "What are you?" she asked, her voice slurred from the ceremonial drink. "My name is Ta. I'm a human from a planet called Earth." He approached slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "I've been studying your people." Hannah pulled against her chains, suddenly alert despite the drugs. "You must leave this place. The offering cannot be interrupted." Tai reached into his pack and withdrew a small laser tool. "I'm not going to let you die for nothing." "Not for nothing," Hannah insisted, her voice growing stronger. "For my people. The mountain spirits demand sacrifice." Ta began working on the first chain, the laser cutting through the ancient metal with surprising difficulty. There are no mountain spirits, only geology, the natural movement of rock and magma beneath the surface. Blasphemy, Hana hissed, though she didn't pull away as the first chain fell free. Our history is clear. When the mountain grows angry, it must be fed. Another tremor shook the ground, stronger than before. Ta steadied himself against the pillar. "See," Hana said. "The spirits know you interfere." Ta moved to the second chain. "This mountain has been building pressure for months. I've been monitoring it. Whether you die here or not, it's going to erupt soon." The second chain broke free. Hana's right arm fell limply to her side, blood rushing back into her fingers. She flexed them experimentally, but made no move to stop Tai as he worked on her left arm. "If what you say is true, then my death would change nothing?" she asked, confusion evident in her voice. "Nothing," Ta confirmed, the laser struggling with the thicker metal of the third chain. "On my world, humans once believed sacrifices could prevent natural disasters too. We were wrong." As Tai worked, Hana studied his face. She had never seen anything like him. His skin was soft and hairless, lacking the fine protective scales of the Terry. His eyes were round instead of almond-shaped, with white surrounds instead of gold. Yet there was something in those eyes, a determination, an intelligence, that she recognized. "Why do you risk yourself for me?" she asked. "The elders will execute you if they find you here." Ta didn't look up from his work. "Because where I come from, we believe all intelligent life is valuable. And because I couldn't watch someone die when I know it won't help." The third chain broke free. Only the restraints on Hana's ankles remained. Ta knelt to work on them, aware that time was running short. The mountain's rumbling had become a constant vibration beneath them. "My people have followed these traditions for 1,000 years, Hana said. "Are you saying all those sacrifices were for nothing?" "I don't know your full history," Tai admitted, "but I know science. This mountain doesn't care who lives or dies at its base." The ground suddenly heaved violently. A massive crack appeared in the earth just yards from the pillar, venting steam and sulfurous gases. Tai was thrown against Hana, his laser tool skittering away into the darkness. "We need to hurry," he said, pulling a backup tool from his pack. "That's a precursor to a major event." In the distance, alarm bells began to ring in the Terry village. Voices carried up the mountain path. "They're coming back," Hana warned. "The tremor has frightened them. They'll want to complete the sacrifice early." Todd worked frantically on the final chains. When the last one broke, Hana nearly collapsed, her legs weak from the restraints and the ceremonial drug. Todd caught her, supporting her weight against his shoulder. "Can you walk?" he asked. Hana forced herself to stand straighter. "I am the finest warrior of the Terry. I can walk." Todd gestured toward the trees on the far side of the clearing. "There's a network of caves that way. My scans show they lead deep into the mountain, away from the main vent." Hana hesitated, looking back down the path toward her village. "My people will die if they stay," Tai finished. "After we're safe, I'll show you my data. Maybe together we can convince them to evacuate." Another tremor shook the ground. The crack widened, spewing more gases. The decision was made for them as torches appeared on the path below. "This way," Tai urged, guiding Hana toward the cave entrance he had discovered during his surveys. As they disappeared into the darkness, Elder June reached the clearing with a group of guards. His cry of rage echoed across the mountainside when he saw the empty chains dangling from the pillar. "Find her," he commanded. "The sacrifice must be completed before dawn, or we are all doomed." Deep in the shadow of the crystal trees, Tai activated a small light and helped Hana navigate the rocky terrain. The cave entrance loomed before them, a dark mouth in the mountain's flank. "Are you certain about this?" Hana asked, staring into the darkness. Ta nodded. "Sometimes the only way to understand the truth is to go deeper." Together, they stepped into the cave as the mountain trembled with increasing fury above them. The cave swallowed them in darkness as they moved deeper into the mountain. Ta's small light cast eerie shadows on the walls, revealing strange crystal formations that seemed to glow faintly in response to their presence. The air grew warmer with each step, heavy with mineral scents, unfamiliar even to Hana, who had spent her life on these lands. "Watch your step," Ta warned as loose rocks clattered beneath their feet. "These tunnels appear natural, but my scans detected some unusual formations deeper inside." Behind them, faint shouts echoed from the cave entrance. The search parties had discovered their escape route. Hana glanced back nervously, her warrior instincts already calculating distances and timing. "They will not give up easily," she said. "The elders believe the entire village will perish if the sacrifice remains incomplete." Ta checked his handheld scanner, its blue glow illuminating his concerned face. "The seismic activity is increasing. Your people are in danger regardless of what happens to you." A violent tremor shook the tunnel, sending dust and small rocks raining down on them. Hana stumbled, still weakened by the ceremonial drug. Ta caught her arm, steadying her as they pressed forward. "We need to move faster," he urged. "This passage should branch soon. According to my readings, the left fork leads deeper into a stable section of the mountain." They hurried ahead, Ta guiding them with his scanner, while Hana, even in her weakened state, maintained vigilant watch for pursuit. The echoing shouts grew louder, accompanied by the flickering glow of torches reflecting off the crystal walls. "There." Ta pointed to a narrow opening where the tunnel split. "Through here." The passage was barely wide enough for their shoulders. They squeezed through, scraping against rough stone walls. As they emerged on the other side, Hana stopped suddenly, grabbing Ta's arm. "Listen," she whispered. The usual rumbling of the mountain continued, but beneath it was another sound, a steady hum, almost mechanical in nature. It was unlike anything Hana had heard before. "What is that?" she asked. Ta consulted his scanner, frowning at the readings. "I'm detecting an energy signature ahead. It's not natural." They followed the humming sound, the tunnel gradually widening into a large cavern. Ta's light seemed feeble against the vast darkness, but as they ventured further, they noticed another source of illumination, a faint blue glow emanating from deeper within. The cavern floor dropped away suddenly. Ta pulled Hana back just before she stepped into empty space. Below them stretched a massive chamber, easily large enough to contain the entire Terry village. The blue light pulsed from devices embedded in the walls, machines unlike anything Hana had ever seen. "By the earth spirits," she breathed, forgetting momentarily her growing doubts about her people's beliefs. "This is incredible," Ta said, adjusting his scanner. "These energy readings are off the charts." They found a narrow path leading down to the chamber floor and descended carefully. The humming grew louder, vibrating through their bodies. At the bottom, they stood before what appeared to be a control console of some kind, covered in dust but still operational, lights blinking in complex patterns. "This is not Terry work," Hana said, stating the obvious. "No one in my village has ever spoken of such things." Tai approached the console cautiously. "These symbols, they're similar to markings I've seen in other star systems. This technology isn't native to your world." Before Hana could respond, a thunderous crash echoed from the tunnel behind them. Voices called out in triumph. "They've broken through the narrow passage," Hana warned. "We don't have much time." Ta worked quickly, trying to understand the ancient machinery. He brushed dust from a screen, which flickered to life at his touch. Symbols scrolled across its surface, then resolved into images, diagrams of the mountain, showing a network of devices burrowing deep into the planet's crust. "I think I understand," he said, his voice filled with growing excitement and alarm. "These are mining machines. They're extracting something from deep within your planet's core." Hana stared at the display, struggling to comprehend. "Mining machines, but our traditions speak only of mountain spirits." "Look here," Ta pointed to a pulsing red area on the diagram. "These devices are malfunctioning. They're causing the seismic disturbances, the tremors your people attributed to angry spirits. A new tremor shook the chamber, stronger than any before. Dust and rocks showered down from the ceiling. In the distance, they heard shouts of fear from the search party. "Can you stop them?" Hannah asked urgently. Tai studied the controls. "Maybe, but I need time to understand this interface." The voices grew closer. Torchlight flickered at the entrance to the massive chamber. "I'll buy you time," Hannah decided, her warrior training taking over despite her weakened state. "Keep working." She positioned herself at the bottom of the path, ready to intercept the search party. Her hands felt empty without her ceremonial spear, but she would face her people nonetheless. Elder June was the first to emerge onto the ledge above, his eyes widening at the sight of the vast chamber and its alien technology. Behind him, 6 guards clutched their weapons nervously, clearly unsettled by what they had discovered. "Hannah," June called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. "What have you done?" The mountain grows more angry by the moment. "Elder June," Hannah called back, standing tall despite her fear. "There are no mountain spirits. Look around you. These machines are causing the tremors. The human is trying to stop them." June's face contorted with rage and fear. "Blasphemy. The outsider has poisoned your mind with lies. The sacrifice must be completed." He gestured to the guards, who began descending the path toward Hannah. She braced herself, prepared to fight if necessary, though it pained her to stand against her own people. Behind her, Tai worked frantically at the console, attempting to decode its operations. The screen changed colors as he touched different symbols, the diagrams shifting to show new information. "I think I've found the shutdown sequence," he called to Hannah. "But it's protected somehow." The ground heaved violently. Part of the ceiling collapsed near the entrance, blocking several guards from advancing. Elder June pressed forward, his ceremonial staff held before him like a weapon. "The mountain will destroy us all," he shouted. "Only your blood will calm its rage." Hannah stood her ground as 2 guards reached her. They hesitated, reluctant to harm their greatest warrior. "Look around you," she pleaded with them. "Do these look like the works of spirits? These are machines, built by visitors from beyond our world." The guards exchanged uncertain glances, their resolve weakening as they took in the alien technology surrounding them. A triumphant shout from Tai drew everyone's attention. "I've got it. The shutdown sequence is initiated." The humming changed pitch, dropping lower. The blue lights flickered, then began to dim one by one. The diagram on the screen showed the drilling machines retracting from the planet's core. Almost immediately, the violent tremors subsided to a gentle rumble. The guards lowered their weapons, looking to Elder June in confusion. "What trickery is this?" the Elder demanded, though doubt had begun to creep into his voice. Tai approached, the screen now displaying historical data. "Your ancestors never knew the truth. The beings who built these machines created the sacrifice tradition to keep your people away from this place. They wanted to harvest your planet's resources undisturbed." The chamber grew quieter as the machines powered down. For the first time in living memory, the mountain's constant rumbling faded to silence. Hannah looked at her people, then at Ta, understanding dawning in her eyes. "We have been deceived for generations, not by angry spirits, but by visitors who valued our resources more than our lives." Elder June stared at the darkening machinery, his worldview crumbling before his eyes. The staff slipped from his fingers, clattering to the stone floor. In the new silence, they could hear the mountains settling, finding peace after centuries of artificial disruption. The silence in the chamber felt strange after so many days of constant rumbling. Elder June sat heavily on a fallen rock, his aged face lined with shock and disbelief. The guards stood awkwardly, weapons hanging limply at their sides, as they stared at the alien machinery that had upended their entire belief system. Ta moved carefully around the control console, his scanner recording everything. His excitement was difficult to contain despite the tension in the air. This discovery would change not only the Terry's understanding of their world, but also add valuable knowledge to humanity's database of ancient extraterrestrial technologies. These systems appear to be at least 2,000 years old, he explained, brushing dust from a panel to reveal more intricate symbols. They were designed to extract a rare mineral from deep within your planet's core. Hannah approached the console, her steps steadier now as the ceremonial drug wore off. The paint on her face had smudged, leaving only traces of the sacred patterns that had marked her for sacrifice. "Why would these visitors create our sacrifice tradition?" she asked, running her fingers over the alien controls. Todd pointed to a sequence of images that appeared on the screen. "Based on these records, they encountered your ancestors shortly after setting up their mining operation. Rather than share the technology or resources, they portrayed themselves as gods." The screen displayed crude drawings showing tall beings descending from the sky, commanding the primitive Terry to bow before them. Another image showed a Terry being led to the stone pillar. "The sacrifices were never about appeasing spirits," Todd continued. "They were about keeping your people afraid, too afraid to explore this mountain and discover what was really happening." One of the younger guards stepped forward hesitantly. "But our texts say the sacrifices calmed the mountain. When offerings were made, the tremors stopped." Ta nodded, understanding dawning on his face. "They programmed the machines to reduce activity temporarily after each sacrifice. It reinforced the belief that the deaths were necessary." Elder June finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thousands of our people, our finest warriors and thinkers, sacrificed for nothing." "Not for nothing," Hannah said firmly, turning to face her elder. "Their deaths maintained our people's survival, even if the reason was not what we believed. Had we discovered this place unprepared, we might have activated something dangerous." Ta moved to another section of the chamber where large transparent tubes extended from floor to ceiling. Inside, a glittering blue-black substance had collected in small amounts. "This appears to be what they were mining," he said, scanning the material. "It's unlike anything I've cataloged before. Some kind of energy-dense crystal." Another tremor shook the chamber, smaller than before but still concerning. Dust filtered down from above. "I thought you stopped the machines," one of the guards said nervously. Tai checked his scanner with a frown. "I initiated the shutdown sequence, but these systems are ancient. Some are still active deeper in the mountain." Hannah pointed to a tunnel mouth on the far side of the chamber. "Where does that lead?" "According to these schematics," Ta said, studying his scanner, "it connects to the main drilling apparatus. The primary control systems should be there." Elder June rose shakily to his feet. "We must see all of it. Our people deserve to know the full truth of what has shaped our history." They moved as a group toward the tunnel, Tay's light leading the way. The passage was different from the natural caves they had traversed earlier, smooth-walled and clearly artificial, with strange glowing symbols appearing at regular intervals. The tunnel descended in a gentle spiral, taking them deeper into the mountain's heart. The air grew warmer, charged with an energy that made their skin tingle. After walking for nearly 10 minutes, they emerged into an even larger chamber than the first. "By the spirits," one of the guards gasped, then quickly corrected himself. No one blamed him for the slip. The sight before them demanded some kind of invocation. A massive machine occupied the center of the chamber, a complex assembly of crystalline components and metallic structures that reached from floor to ceiling. At its core, a column of pulsing blue-white energy connected to dozens of smaller tubes that extended outward like the roots of a great tree, disappearing into the chamber walls. "The primary extractor," Ta breathed, his scanner working furiously to capture the data. "It's still partially operational." Hannah approached the machine cautiously. "Is it dangerous?" "In its current state, yes," Ta confirmed. "These readings indicate it's becoming increasingly unstable. The shutdown sequence I initiated in the other chamber only affected the secondary systems." Elder June joined them, his initial shock giving way to anger. "These visitors, these false gods, they built this beneath our sacred mountain, sacrificed our people, and then abandoned it. Not exactly abandoned, Ta said, pointing to a section of the machine where a panel hung open, tools scattered nearby. It looks like they were attempting repairs when something went wrong, perhaps a malfunction they couldn't control. Hannah examined the tools, unlike any the Terry had developed. So they fled, leaving their machines running for generations, knowing what would happen. They may have planned to return, Ta suggested, or perhaps they couldn't shut it down safely. A stronger tremor shook the chamber, causing several smaller crystals to shatter. The central energy column flickered ominously. Whatever their plans, Elder June said grimly, we are the ones who must deal with the consequences now. Ta moved to what appeared to be the main control console, studying its layout. The symbols here were more complex, arranged in patterns that reminded him of mathematical equations. I believe this is the primary control system, he said, but it's more sophisticated than the one above. I'm not sure I can decipher it quickly enough. Hannah noticed something in the corner of the chamber, a skeleton, partially hidden behind fallen debris. The remains weren't Terry. The bone structure was all wrong, with an elongated skull and 6-fingered hands. Ta, she called. Look at this. He joined her, examining the remains with surprise. One of the visitors. It appears they didn't all escape whatever disaster happened here. Clutched in the skeleton's 6-fingered hand was a device, similar to Ta's scanner, but more advanced. Carefully, Ta extracted it from the bony fingers. This might help us understand their technology, he said, attempting to activate the alien device. To everyone's surprise, it hummed to life, projecting a 3-dimensional schematic of the entire mining complex. Symbols flashed in urgent patterns, accompanied by a voice, a recorded message in a language none of them understood. It's some kind of warning or instruction, Ta said, studying the projection. Look how these sections are highlighted in red. The schematic showed the energy flows throughout the system, with critical points marked clearly. One section pulsed with particular urgency. I think it's showing us how to safely shut down the primary extractor, Ta said excitedly. See how these energy pathways need to be closed in sequence. Elder June stared at the projection, then at the massive machine before them. Can you do it? Can you end this threat to our people? Ta hesitated, aware of the responsibility he was taking on. I believe so, but there's risk involved. If I misinterpret these instructions, the system could become more unstable. Hannah stepped forward, placing her hand on Ta's shoulder. My people have lived under the shadow of this machine for generations, believing it was the wrath of spirits. If there's a chance to free them from that fear, we must take it. Another tremor, stronger than the last, emphasized her words. The central energy column sputtered dangerously. Ta nodded, determination replacing his uncertainty. I'll need your help, all of you. As they gathered around the alien control panel, the full weight of their discovery settled over them. This wasn't just about stopping earthquakes or preventing an eruption. It was about freeing an entire civilization from a lie that had shaped their culture for thousands of years. The machine hummed ominously as Ty prepared to enter the shutdown sequence, guided by the dead alien's final message. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the great hall, illuminating the gathered Terry as they waited in hushed anticipation. 3 days had passed since the events in the mountain, and the village had experienced something unknown in living memory. Complete stillness beneath their feet. No tremors, no ominous rumbling, just the steady, solid earth. Hannah stood at the center of the hall, no longer adorned in sacrificial white, but dressed in the traditional blue robes of a village elder. She had spent these days explaining what they had discovered to her people, facing their shock, disbelief, and finally, their cautious hope. Elder June sat in his ceremonial chair, looking older than before, but somehow lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Beside him sat other members of the council, their expressions solemn but attentive. The doors to the great hall opened, and Ta entered. He had spent the past days in the mountain chambers, studying the alien technology with a team of curious Terry who had volunteered to help. Now he carried a small device, a projection unit salvaged from the mining complex. People of the Terry, Elder Jun began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to say. For thousands of years, we have lived in fear of the mountain's wrath. We have sacrificed our finest warriors to appease what we believed were angry spirits. Today we gather to learn the full truth of our history. He gestured to Ta, who stepped forward and activated the projection device. Above the heads of the assembled villagers, a three-dimensional image appeared, the complete mining system that had been hidden beneath their sacred mountain. This machine, Tai explained, was built by visitors from beyond your world, beings who came seeking valuable minerals from deep within your planet. They used their advanced technology to extract these resources, causing the tremors you attributed to mountain spirits. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some faces showed anger, others disbelief. When these visitors encountered your ancestors, Ta continued, they chose deception over truth. They created the sacrifice tradition to keep your people away from their mining operation. Each time a sacrifice was made, they programmed their machines to temporarily reduce activity, reinforcing your belief that the deaths appeased the mountain. An elderly woman stood up from among the villagers. My great-grandmother was sacrificed. Are you saying she died for nothing? Hannah stepped forward. Not for nothing, Elder Mira. Our ancestors' sacrifices allowed our people to survive, even if the reason was built on lies. Had we discovered the truth before we were ready, we might have triggered a catastrophic failure in the mining system. Ta nodded in agreement. The final shutdown was extremely dangerous. If not done properly, it could have caused the very eruption your people feared. He adjusted the projection to show the sequence they had followed 3 days ago. The images showed Tai at the main control panel, directing Hannah and the guards to adjust various components throughout the chamber. As they had worked, the energy levels had fluctuated wildly, threatening to overload. The visitors who built this system never returned to properly shut it down, Tai explained. Over centuries, it began to malfunction, causing increasingly severe tremors. By the time I arrived to study your culture, it was approaching a critical failure point. In the projection, they watched as the central energy column finally dimmed, the pulsing blue-white light fading to darkness as the ancient machines powered down for the final time. When the system shut down, Ta said, it released a surge of energy that could have been catastrophic. But because we followed the proper sequence, that energy was safely dispersed through the mountain's natural channels. Elder Jun rose from his chair, addressing his people directly. The human speaks truth. I witnessed it with my own eyes. The beings we worshipped as mountain spirits were merely travelers with advanced tools. They used our fear to protect their mining operation, then abandoned us when something went wrong. A young warrior stood up. How do we know the mountain will not awaken again? How can we trust that the danger has truly passed? Ta showed them readings from his scanner. I've been monitoring seismic activity since the shutdown. The patterns have completely changed. What you're experiencing now is the natural state of your mountain. Occasional small tremors as the earth settles, but nothing like the artificial disturbances caused by the mining system. Hannah moved to stand beside Ta. Our traditions taught us to fear the mountain. Now we have the opportunity to truly understand it. Elder Jun nodded slowly. For generations, we have shaped our lives around sacrifice. Now we must learn to live without that burden. The hall fell silent as the Terry absorbed this monumental shift in their understanding of the world. Then, from the back of the crowd, a child spoke up. If the spirits weren't real, what will happen to our festivals? Who will we thank for our harvests? Hannah smiled gently. We can thank the sun that warms our fields, the rain that waters our crops, and each other for the work we do together. Our traditions can evolve without losing their meaning. Elder Jun raised his hands to quiet the murmuring crowd. Change will not come easily. We have much to reconsider, many texts to re-examine. But we will face this new understanding together, as the Terry have faced all challenges. He turned to Ta. Human, you came to study our ways, but you have become part of our story. What will you do now? Ta looked around at the faces watching him. Some grateful, some still wary, all forever changed by his intervention. "With your permission," he said, "I would like to stay longer. There is much we can learn from each other. The technology beneath your mountain is unlike anything my people have encountered before, and your culture's ability to adapt and survive is remarkable." Hannah stepped forward. "I propose that Ta be welcomed as an honored guest of the Terry. His knowledge can help us understand not only the machines beneath our mountain, but also the wider universe beyond our world." Elder June considered this, then nodded. "It shall be so. But first," he added with unexpected lightness, "we must teach him our ways properly. No more hiding in crystal trees to watch our ceremonies." Laughter rippled through the crowd, breaking the tension. Even Ta smiled, relieved that his violation of research protocols had been forgiven. As the formal gathering dissolved into smaller conversations, Hannah led Ta to a window overlooking the village and the mountain beyond. For the first time in either of their memories, the peak was clear, no ominous smoke signaling impending doom. "You were foolish to save me," Hannah said quietly. "To risk yourself for someone you barely knew, to challenge beliefs held for thousands of years." Ta watched the villagers below, going about their daily tasks with a new lightness in their movements. "Sometimes foolishness is exactly what's needed. Your people were trapped in a cycle created by beings who saw them as obstacles, not equals. Someone had to break that cycle." "My people have much to relearn," Hannah said, looking toward the future with clear eyes. "Our history, our relationship with the mountain, our place in a universe much larger than we imagined." "And my people have much to learn from yours," Tay replied. "About resilience, about community, about adapting to new truths without losing what matters most." Below them, children played in the village square, their laughter floating up on the breeze. No longer would they grow up fearing that one day they might be chosen to die on the sacrificial pillar. No longer would they watch their bravest friends and family members chained to stone in service to a lie. The mountain stood silent against the sky, no longer a looming threat, but simply a part of their world, beautiful and ordinary in its stillness. Sometimes it takes a foolish outsider to see what generations of the wise have missed, and to have the courage to break the chains that bind us to our darkest traditions.